FNAF Mysteries with TDreads and Andrew is in the games. Hello there, everybody. My name is TDreads, and welcome back to FNAF Mysteries with TDreads and Andrew is in the games. Today, we have a very, very special guest. Please welcome Game Theory. Say hello.
Hello. Hello.
We are here to talk about a very non-controversial topic that everyone unanimously agrees upon, and that is Gregory from Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. I can't wait.
Of course, the notoriously easy to figure out subject in this, like in a sea full of complicated lore, this is the one that everyone agrees on.
Oh, for sure, for sure. That and Midnight Motorist. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
All right.
Very, very easy subject, really, obviously.
Yeah. So obviously, we'll go over kind of from a beginner level to a more like advanced, I never leave my house kind of level of the questions about Gregory, starting basically just with who do we think Gregory is and how did he end up at the Pizzaplex? Now, I said simple, but obviously there's already 30 different ways you could go with this. But when it comes to Gregory, this is a sadly as simple as you can get, pretty much.
Right, you've got to start somewhere, and who Gregory is feels like the obvious starting point.
Well, we can do a descriptor first, because that's just objective.
Sure.
He is someone with the appearance of a young child.
I love the caveats we're having to throw in and the vagueness.
I can't because we can't say if he's a kid or not. You know.
No, we'll spoil what we're going to talk about.
You gotta watch to the end. Retention.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, what do we know? Yes. Okay, so he is someone who appears to be a young child. He is not on the records of the giant Pizzaplex that they're at. That's another thing as well. Seemingly, this already sucks.
Right? How hard this is.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we can talk about so we first encounter him. He is inside of Freddy's stomach hatch.
Yeah.
Somehow got in there. Again, welcome to the mysteries of nobody knows quite how and when, but he's in there.
Yeah.
And he is, during that game, is trying to escape. He's trying to get out of the Pizzaplex. Seems to have some knowledge of wider murders or missing kids going on.
He is a prerequisite distrust of Vanessa that does not get explained. He knows Vanessa's evil for some reason.
He knows Vanessa's evil, and right at the end he pulls out the line of like, but what about all the more kids will go missing? And we're just like, wait, this has not been brought up at all. But sure, okay, you know about this thing, cool. He has, the classic thing is he, as you said, looks like a kid, brown hair, brown eyes, blue shirt with stripes on it.
I'm thinking of the chart.
Shorts, band-aid on the knee.
Yeah.
Classic visuals that FNAF fans will recognize, but again, retention. You'll have to see what happens. But yeah, that's kind of like the crux of Gregory's initial appearance, who he is. I'm trying to think of personality traits, even from what we see of him in the games. Like you talked about his distrust of Vanessa.
It's a bit snarky.
He's snarky.
Yeah.
He seems to he feels like it kind of, again, Security Breach is such a mess. He feels like he flip-flops a lot, from sometimes being like, know what I'm doing and everything, I'm just gonna do my thing, and then other times going, how dare you leave me behind and not tell me what's going on. And it's just it feels like he kind of moves between these two sides almost of being aware but not being aware. Having this righteous sense of we need to save the future kids from all this stuff, but then also potentially could just leave.
Yeah, whether that's lore relevant or just
and
not being
that's
very
always
tight.
The question, especially since Security Breach. That was always the question. The only other time we've seen much of Gregory was right at the very end of Ruin, where we then have, and again, whether this is Gregory or not is a whole debate. But it's the initial appearance is that Gregory is talking to Cassie right at the end of Ruin when she's in the elevator escaping the mimic, and he's like trying to guide her through. He's been trying to guide her through, going, follow my directions. My friend has the schematics. We know what we're doing. But then at the end going, hey, you've kind of seen too much.
Yeah.
And we can't let that thing out. So see ya. And drops the elevator shit and to what appears to be like what is going to be the true or canon ending, again unconfirmed, but it feels like the only place where there's a story to go, because like the other ending is like the mimic gets defeated, which feels really anticlimactic, then having followed up with Secret of the Mimic, if we're just going, oh well, that's gonna, but anyway, that's me getting off on a tangent. Anyway, apologies.
Well, well, and that's the ending with the little MCU teaser too, where it's like Cassie, it's Roxy. So I 100%. Assume that one's canon.
But yeah.
All right. I think for now we'll move over how'd he end up there, because I'm sure we'll get into basically stuff that encompasses that. So for now we can say, why do we think there is so little record of him? Because to me, this really sticks out because it's a contradiction in the story, kind of. Because the therapists very clearly have records of him because they're able to say, hey, the things you're saying about your past are not true. You know, these are lies. However, at the Pizzaplex itself, nothing. There's no record of anyone named Gregory. So the odd thing about that is that it almost makes me think that where the therapy is happening is a separate place from the Pizzaplex. Which is bizarre because Vanessa has all the same therapists. Are they just like contracted therapists going out to different?
Yeah, no,
clinics?
I see. It's weird. But then at the same time, why would a therapist be seeing kids in the Pizzaplex? Like I guess you could have that as a resource, but that feels odd.
Exactly.
I do in one of the therapist tapes. I love it that we all call them tapes, even though they're like CDs. It's just like, tapes. Yeah. Like it's what we got used to. But with those tapes, she talks about, I talked to I can't remember if it's to Vanessa or Gregory. Like, I think it's to Gregory, but again, it's been a long time since I've got into the details where she says like, I talked to lots of people. Like I talked to, not just kids. I think it is Gregory, because it's like not just kids, but like adults and different people I talked to, and like so it would imply that there's some there's some outside corporation here that's like fazbear is essentially contracting to go, you're going to deal with all of our important people, you're going to deal with their therapy, rather than having like an internal therapist, which then allows them to essentially be a freelancer who can see school kids as well. Because again, depending on how much you want to take GGY at its word, it's like they're like school therapists, or they're seeing school children, I believe. And so that's kind of where I would see it. But you raise a very good point of like, they clearly have records, but fazbear doesn't. And so firstly, that distinction of like, are they third party is important, because it then goes, okay, so some records of this kid exist. They're not just someone that kind of came out of complete nowhere, but the Pizzaplex doesn't. Which also raises an interesting point. I know for a long time, like we pointed towards this, and I know a lot of people did, when Freddy kind of goes haywire, he spots like a kid in the crowd and then short circuits and goes into safe mode. If there's no records of Gregory, is he therefore seeing Gregory?
Yeah, I'd say if there's no record of him, who's he recognizing? Yeah,
which is an interesting little breakdown there, because as well we also have all of the animatronics, and again, like whether this is Vanessa's influence or Glitch Trap or how this is kind of working, is all the animatronics know who Gregory is, because they're all like, you have the creepy lines of Gregory like coming and trying to lure him in. So again, there's some idea of who he is, it's just not in the official records. Which,
yes, and I would say to that probably, because they're all probably, most of the animatronics minus Freddy in safe mode are into the same kind of like mainframe system. And we know Vanny has a Vanny mask, so I'm assuming Vanny herself would be able to influence all the animatronics to go after Gregory, similar to what we see happen in kind of GGY, where we know that Gregory can put code into these different animatronics to make them behave certain ways. So that might be why they all know his name. I almost wonder if the reason Gregory has no record at all there is because he never even went to the Pizzaplex in the game timeline under that name. Yeah, if he always had an alias. Because it's annoying, because escape the Pizzaplex, there he's known as Gregory there. But does that happen?
But he also,
knows.
I mean, so I talked with Gibby about this a little bit. I'm of the opinion, I believe, and again, with everything open-handed, right? Like, I'm always willing to, like, have this be changed. I am of the opinion that the interactive novels seem to be in universe, like in-game universe, they seem quite well, like some more than others, admittedly, but they seem, especially like Escape the Pizzaplex and The Week Before and VIP, it's literally just Return to the Pit that kind of feels like this weird extra branch. But right,
that one's insane.
But those ones seem to be more tied into universe, and in Escape the Pizzaplex, like Gregory's just kind of there, and it's always like after hours, and so it feels like, again, is he sneaking in, or is he, you know, sat up in his cubby in the cubby hole we find in the daycare, and he's just like hanging out there. So again, like, he's not a kid that's like registered in the system, he's snuck in essentially and is just like camping out. So there is no, like, either he came in with an alias initially and then just hung out, or, you know, it's that thing of like, did he just sneak in to begin with, and so there's no record of him? I think either is perfectly reasonable to kind of assume at this point. We don't know for sure, obviously, but I think that would explain why there's no records of, like, and again, even if he did scan in, why there are no records of like a Gregory if he had an alias. Or
I'm having a brain melt because I just remembered the employees know he goes there. The therapist specifically says, hey, the techs recognized you. The techs know you're doing. So what? Why is there no record of it when they know he's there?
This lends itself, I guess, to the idea of the alias that you're talking about, because the therapist never references him by name. And so the idea that, like, Gregory, and like even we called out in like initial theories that fact that he gets out of like Freddy, and he's like, who are you? And he's just like, Gregory, and kind of like comes up with this name almost. There's a pause which feels a little odd. And so it's like, oh, is he trying to remember that his name is like trying to remember what his fake alias is, because that's like what he's been giving out since he's been in the Pizzaplex. Kind of lends itself to that, and I think that would make a lot of sense. Like, the techs know who he is, but he's like not who he says he is, essentially.
Yeah. I've never thought of that Gregory is the fake name. I always thought that he broke out of control and remembered his actual name. That's a good point,
that's the thing. It could be like with all these things, right? Yeah. There's so many options and we have no idea. Like, there's very little confirmation. So it could be either, but it's an interesting... It could go either way. Either he's remembering his real name, or it's that thing of, oh, I've got to remember the fake name I gave out. But again, I think it is probably more in line with what you were saying about remembering his real name, because if there's no record... or is it, though? Because if there's no record of a Gregory... I'm getting myself in loops now. This is FNAF. Well and truly.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
This is how it goes.
This is how this goes.
If there's no record of a Gregory, then... Is that because the fake name is the one he's been... Like, Gregory's the fake name that he's been living under, so there's a Gregory in the system, but then they wouldn't have... I'm getting so caught into nuts over this.
Yeah. we'll be doing this all night.
This is the video.
Okay.
Have fun, everyone.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to solve...
Oh, I love it. I mean, that's the trope, isn't it? Every video, I solved this thing, and then by the end of it, we're all like,
It actually, it works. I know, that's the sad part.
Because everyone wants it solved. We all want it solved. We all wish it was solved by the end.
I know. Every time I see that in a title, I'm like, really?
It's a glimmer of hope.
Long last?
Glimmer of hope. One day we'll get there.
Right. Well, speaking of him coming out of Glamrock Freddy, what's up with that? Because Glamrock Freddy, for one, goes into safe mode the second he spots Gregory, presumably, for some reason. And then throughout the rest of the game, does not try to harm him at all unless he runs out of power. So it's you got 3 layers there. You have Freddy with no power, Freddy with the base program running, and Freddy with the base program plus developer permissions.
Right.
That is also evil. So it's weird. It's like an evil hamburger. He can be evil, good, and then depending on how much power he has.
Yeah, the power thing is strange. Like, because the other part, the first half of it, there's some sense of it. If we're looking at glitch trap, M1, however you wanna like like the Mimic 1 program or Glitch Trap, depending on how you want to look at the Pizzaplex and how it's being run, him then being in safe mode goes, oh, he's like outside the system. Like he's not connected. It's like only booting with base formatting. And so you go, oh, he's not connected in. He's not like, he's not able to be controlled in the same way where like the others are, which is why he's safe. Because that's what they're programmed to be. So that kind of makes sense. But then you go into the like loss of power and you're going, oh, this feels like what, like almost again, it just feels like a game mechanic where it's like, hey, don't lose, like you just can't lose the power rather than it being a lore thing. Because it's like, from any perspective, it's like, if he's lost power, he's lost power. He ain't doing nothing. He's lost power, surely. Because then he suddenly would like have to like reconnect into the system out of safe mode and all that sort of stuff, and it feels confusing. But therefore, like even just talking about like the first half, I think it again makes sense with his connection to Gregory, because in safe mode he's just like, you are child, I protect and look after you, that is my programming, versus when he's under the control of like Glitch Trap, Vanessa, M1 and that sort of realm, who are like, this kid is in some way important, which we'll get to, probably, maybe. But it's like, but like this kid's important and we need him and we need to grab him.
Yeah. I'm almost thinking about kind of the Glamrocks as kind of an operating system, the way they kind of boot into like safe mode or whatever, because it's weird that like he clearly has another like type of programming that gets shut off when he crashes. And I always interpreted it as he's kind of booting up with just the base necessities, you know, whatever they call it, like manufacturer settings, factory reset kind of, you know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting because I guess that'll lead into the next question, which is that just not really a question, more of a discussion about the hacker thing, right? Patient 46 is a hacker. And my question has always been, is Gregory naturally good at hacking, or can he only do that because he has some weird mimic Afton virus mimic stuff in his head?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question, and it was one of the things that I reevaluated a little bit once I had gotten around to watching GodDavid and like some of the other theories from the community and stuff like that. Like some of the options that I threw out were very much that. They were options. I was like, I'm not sure at this point. Here are two ways of looking at this, and so your theory of GodDavid very much lent into, here's a different perspective on some of this evidence. And I really liked a lot of it because it comes down to that sense of, with Gregory, like that idea of like, does he suddenly gain abilities? Is he just a natural hacker, or is he like, because like the level of hacking he's doing feels impressive. Like he's hacking. I know fazbear is like negligent and all of this sort of stuff, but they're not like it is an entire like system he is hacking into. He is hacking into like basic things like emails and security cameras and things like that. But he's also like, again, depending on how you want to take GGY, he's like hacking the animatronics themselves and able to like recode them to do his bidding, which again, book canonicity, not necessarily a thing at this point, but especially with like Tales from the Pizzaplex and stuff like that. But there are little snippets you can take away and go, well, we know that the animatronics are being corrupted in some way by Glitch Trap. And so is that a connection point there to go, oh, Gregory in the books is hacking them in the same way that Glitch Trap is. Therefore, this is a connection between Glitch Trap and Gregory, and that's how he is able to hack. And so it becomes that point of like, he's learned from Glitch Trap. That would be kind of where, again, so much of this is so hard because it's like, I want to launch into other things, which I know we've got, we want to dive into more depth, and it's like, it's that order of operations. Which do you tackle first?
Yeah, basics first, then
then GREGBOT's next.
Yeah, that'll be the latter like 40 minutes. No, because I was thinking of that because when I was going back through all the lines Gregory has for like the GodDavid research or whatever, the first time you use the repair station to upgrade Freddy, Gregory makes a big deal about not knowing what he's doing. He doesn't know how to operate machinery. He goes, I don't know what all these buttons do. Something akin to that. Something akin to like,
he does.
Yeah. So I'm reading that like, okay, is he like Death Note 4D chessing? Like, I'm gonna pretend I don't know what I'm, or is he actually like, I'm a kid, I've never touched a Freddy upgrade machine, I don't know what this is.
Because it's one of those things, and like I toy with it a lot in other franchises as well. I'm currently working on Poppy stuff, and that's in my brain. So, and again, this is a franchise where we've done this, where it's like, you have to be really careful with how many times you accuse a character of lying, or how many characters you accuse of just lying, because it just becomes really unsatisfying if you just go, oh, well, they were lying. It's like a get out of jail free card for the person writing the story, but it's really unsatisfying to just go, oh yeah, all those things you learn, yeah, they're not. Don't worry about it. Like, it was all fake. It's just like if it's well planned and seeded, then it's like, oh, that's such a good twist. But if it's just like pulled out of nowhere, it can feel really disingenuous. And so I'm like, with this, it's like, again, it was like with the whole Gregory trying to remember his name thing, or saying his name. It's like, how much of it is him being disingenuous? How much of it is real? There's that sense of like being careful with like, yeah, is he lying? Am I saying he's lying just to fit the narrative that I need? So obviously it's like, oh, well, he's clearly lying, and that can easily be a trap that people fall into, and like we've done it in the past as well. And so I'm not like trying to like shame anyone for that. It's like, it happens. But with like this, with Scott, while FNAF lore is complicated, he does tend to lean into tropes and similar and simplified elements within a complex story. And so I would hazard to lean into that sense of like, again, as we've been talking about, it feels like a moment of, oh, this Gregory and this Gregory are not the same. Like, not that they're physically different people, but it's just that sense of like, there's the Gregory who can hack and is doing all of this, the GGY Dr. Rabbit, essentially, and real Gregory, whichever, and that sense of like, he is not a hacker by trade. I think that's a great piece of evidence towards that perspective. I've totally forgotten about that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember that so many of these people telling the story are not Scott, like in universe. People telling the stories are unreliable narrators. Like Baby throughout the entirety of Sister Location, just lying to you, pretty much, presumably to get you to do things.
And that's what I mean, though, about it being satisfying. You know? I think Baby, like, lying to you the whole time, at the end, like, the rug's pulled out from under you, and you can go back and you can kind of see, oh, this was getting me to do this. This was getting, like, tricking me into this to align a purpose. So you go, I didn't see it, but I get it. Whereas I think, like, this, if Gregory was just lying, I don't know how to use this machine, just, like, feigning incompetence for something that didn't necessarily, like, the only person there is Freddy. He didn't need to lie. And so it would just feel like, oh, like, it would just feel a bit trite, I think is probably the best word for it.
Kind of pointless. I get what you mean. All right. Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes, we can lastly talk about GGY very briefly. I haven't read the story in a while, but for what I remember, I don't even remember the kid. Is the main kid's name Tony?
Oh, gosh. Gosh, it's now
maybe
it's now
all right, anyway.
Shredding my whole brain as well. I'm like, oh gosh, it has been a while. Tony. Tony.
Yeah, Tony. Okay. He's some middle schooler. They're writing a project. He's got two friends. He writes it about the mysterious GGY in the arcade cabinets at the Pizzaplex. Eventually, he discovers there's some weird, like, hacker stuff going on in the system. Glamrock Freddy's being weird. And then his friend, Dr. Rab, that he calls Rab, who is actually just Gregory.
Just wholesale.
At the end of the story, he's like, come to the Pizzaplex. We'll have fun. I totally won't murder you. And that's basically it. And all the stories seem to be supposed to tell you was that Gregory is Patient 46, because nobody could agree on who Patient 46 was.
Yeah. It's so funny. Again, a lot of, like, Fazbear Frights and Tales from the Pizzaplex, these short stories, are very interesting works of fiction and very interesting ways of, like, telling these stories and, like, what information are they trying to get to you. And sometimes it's, like, just a good story. Sometimes it's, like, big reveals, and then other times it's, like, here is just, like, one story that just clarifies a thing. And that's very much what this, as you said, what this feels like, where it's just like, hey, we just get very definitively, here is patient 46. Like, here are the therapists. His name's Greg. He's hacking everything. And by the way, his nickname is Dr. Rabbit, because that's not suspicious. So it's...
No, not at all.
And it's where, like, the challenge of, like, the book canonicities come in, because Secret the Mimic basically blew that out the water in terms of, like, the canonicity of those books, because the Edwins are just drastically different and the family histories are just drastically different.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's then hard because, like, this story feels like such a thing that could just fit, right? It could just be part of the lore of the game timeline, and there's very little in it that would feel contradictory, at least to memory. And so you're just going like, but now it's like, oh, but it's not canon. So how much of it is other than like, okay, we can take the detail that he's probably patient 46, but how much of like his hacker identity is important there? Was like, is he possessed at that point? And again, is Gregory then the alias he's using? Like, there are small things we can take, but I remember like liking it as a story, but I liked it because I'm a FNAF fan. And so I was reading it going, wait a minute, Dr. Rabbit, that's suspicious. Oh, a hacker. Oh, therapists. And so you're putting the pieces together. As a story in and of itself, it's a little bland, kind of, because it just kind of has this sense of like,
yeah,
like there's some like build up obviously in the story, but at the end it just kind of like, there's no big like, it doesn't feel like there's a big real moment. At least for me, there wasn't like this big moment of like, oh my gosh, this like real threat. It kind of is like always looming, but never quite arrives. And then at the end, he just kind of goes, oh, I won't murder you. Come with me. And it's like,
yeah, I feel like the main point of the story was probably just to be like clarification first and foremost, less of a. Also, I love how Scott waited till after all the books were done to be like, ha ha ha, deconfirmed.
Yeah, right. I mean,
yeah.
I could talk about that whole debate for hours. I mean, I think the big thing is Scott is very aware of the community. Always has been.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and you know, in the old days when he was talking to Matt through website updates, like during live streams, like he's aware of what the community is saying. And I think while, you know, we can talk about like how that debate was handled online by people, it kept the conversation going. Like, he is releasing books in between game releases, and it keeps that hype and that discussion going. And so that debate allowed lots of different theories to happen and lots of debates to keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Continuously. And so it keeps FNAF in the zeitgeist and in like people's consciousness. Whereas you think if there was like nothing for 10 months, people start to lose interest because there's just nothing to go. So allowing that debate to kind of go, and him trolling, being like, the answer is yes, which is like, well, is it this or this? And he's like, yes, and just doesn't like confirm anything really. It's constantly just kind of stirring the pot and allowing the discussion to keep going, which is a smart business move, I suppose, more than anything. But but it is frustrating for all of us. But at the same time, it allows him to go, right, because now the discussion is all going to be about this game. We don't need this debate to keep going to perpetuate the discussion.
Well, we've arrived at our latter half/third of this discussion.
Yep.
There's a little known theory going around called GodDavid. Which actually builds off of one that I think you co-wrote, had a degree of responsibility in.
Yeah.
Which was the GREGBOT. Yeah, the GREGBOT theory.
Yeah, that was my first.
So basically,
that was my first ever FNAF theory.
Oh my god, what a way to come out swinging.
Came out swinging, absolutely. It was one of those things. I'd been there like a few months, and Matt was like, oh, so Secure Breach coming out, you have to write FNAF theories. I was like, oh no, what have I done? And suddenly we were in it, and it was one of those things where me and Matt spent a good several hours and days, like several hours that spanned into days, talking about this and trying to figure out what the theories were, because we ended up with like 4 at the end of it, and that was the thing. We were having all of these ideas at once, and it was having to pass through them and figure them out. And so yeah, GREGBOT was where we kind of started as our kind of like, this is like the big one to kick off, because Matt also liked to go big to begin with.
Definitely was a big one to kick off with. Basically, GodDavid is simply the idea that through some means, crying child is supposed to be David, is supposed to be Gregory. It's just the idea that all three of them are intentionally, by some force in the story, supposed to be the same kid, right? Preferably not through robot means, because that's its own theory. That's its own theory. But in general, there's a really big, there's a huge amount of evidence along that line of thinking, to the point where I could make a 55-minute video just being like, and then there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and what does this mean? And it's very interesting because people had largely stopped talking about it by the time Secret of the Mimic came out. It was less relevant than it was, obviously, like when Security Breach was first coming out, right? People were more so focused on, Ruin and Cassie and this kind of stuff, and Help Wanted 2 and Cassie's dad, blah, blah, blah. And then out of nowhere, Scott Cawthon just comes swinging with David Murray, who's sitting on a hill with an animatronic caretaker, got stripes on his shirt, lives in the FNAF 4 house. Like, nobody asked for that. He just came, woo!
Yeah, it implies that there's at least some level of planning going on, which, we
I know, I can't believe it.
We as a community flip-flop. It's so funny seeing the pendulum swing where, like, Scott is a genius and everything's been planned from the beginning and Scott doesn't know what he's doing. And it's just like, you do see it swing over time, which is so fascinating to see. And it's like, it's swinging back into that direction of like, oh, maybe he did have, at some point anyway, not from FNAF 1, I think that would be absurd. But that's ridiculous. But there clearly came a point where he was then like, this is the pendulum swing to, like, he knows. He had some plan at some point. And whether that was for Security Breach, which he always planned to bring in, or whether that was like, a little bit later on when he started planning Secret of the Mimic and was going, oh, actually, this is like the thread to pull. Or, he just knew that it would wind people up because of how angry people got at GREGBOT over the connection points. And that's the thing, like, you said, like, you made a 55-minute video, literally, like, there's so many connections. And, like, now with David Murray in the mix, like, it brought that conversation back to light. But, like, back in the day, we were like, look, there are, like, people laughed and joked about, like, oh, these two boys vaguely look the same, therefore. And it's like, there is a lot. Like, we ended up doing our part 2, our second video. We had, like, a little rebuttal at the beginning of it. Because we're like, look, here's all this extra evidence. Because there were just a lot of connections between David Afton and Gregory, where you're going, these two, like, there has to be something going on here. And at the time, our best efforts were going, Robot Kid, because it had been a thing that had been teased for a long time, but had never gone anywhere in the franchise, and that was kind of how we ended up there. But there's got to be something between these two characters, and then you add David Murray into the mix, and I'm like, okay, this is like, to your video point, yeah, it's undeniable, and it was kind of what I toyed with at the end of my Secret of the Mimic series, was this point of like, this cannot be coincidence. It is now purely about how you explain what's going
those
on, connections.
What it's trying to tell you.
What are the connections? Like, these connections cannot be coincidence anymore. There's too many to count, so it needs to be. We just need to figure out what the explanation for that is, versus just going, it's a coincidence and move on, because it's like, it just can't be. So
for the benefit of FNAF theory, Twitter everywhere, let's go over what those connections are. So, Tom, loud and proud, why did you think he was a robot?
Why did we think he was a robot? So, like, I mean, the robot part of it, it stemmed from a very, very old theory where Matt had talked about what's in the box. You know, that old bombshell of like, what's in the box? Oh, yeah. And he talked about, it's a robot version of the Crying Child, because the Silver Eyes trilogy had just sort of come out around that time. And so it's like, Charlie, robot kid in a box. The robot kid's in the box. And that's going to be the FNAF 4 bedroom. It's the Crying Child. So that had been something that had like gone nowhere. As we all know, the box went nowhere in the end. But so there was always that thing in Matt's mind of robot kid in the box. And then we looked at Gregory, and like, again, everyone memed us for the visual differences of like, you have you've got the striped shirt, the hair, the shorts, and the bandage on the knee, and those sorts of like similarities where you're just like going, oh, this visually there's some connection here. Like, but again, visual connections are not the be all end all. You have lines like, "You are broken," which Glamrock Freddy gives, and so it's like, again, that line was changed from a line about "you're bleeding," which would make him seem much more human. So we're like, okay, so that's an interesting change in and of itself, but also that change, the fact that it got changed infers that there's an importance to that language difference. And so highlighting that connection of "you are broken," which is "you are broken and I will put you back together."
Yeah. In retrospect, it might not have been to make you not think he was a human. They might have had that in there as an extra bit of like, like a breadcrumb, like connect with the crying child, guys. Connect with the crying child. You know, so that might have been the reason they changed that.
100%. And that's the thing. It was us trying to go, here is these two characters that feel the same. I'm trying to remember them all now. There's so, again, we do so many theories. There are so many connections to, I'm trying to recall them all now. I mean, part of it all connects to like the idea that we also believed he was patient 46. And so you have like the post-it room. And there's things like where you have birthday cake, it was for me. Or like party time and things like that, where the party was for me, which is from the security logbook with the crying child saying the party was for me. As well as then like a drawing that, like, if you connect the dot or the pieces, it looks like the connection from the FNAF 4 house to the diner. And I think there was a point where we had like a lot of presents, but we had like 7 heads and 7 graves had become a new thing for us. Where it'd always been like, it'd always been the 5 missing kids. Then there was 6 gravestones in FNAF 6, which we were then, oh, that's Charlie, like on the hill, like having died. Similar visual in the graphic novelization of the Silver Eyes. And then you've got this 7th kid, and it's like, well, the crying child is this other dead kid that never really fit anywhere and didn't make sense. So having this like 7th head in this group of faces in a room also filled with binary. And like the writing slowly getting better over time, and like it's saying like, I forget what the binary was. It was like
and the Afton family table just sitting up there.
Yeah, exactly, the Afton family table, and I can't remember what the binary was.
Little on the nose.
But yeah, all of those things suddenly make you go, okay, so there's like something in binary. Learning who it is, those things seem connected to the Aftons and the Afton family. And again, we've then had this idea of this robot kid in a box that didn't go anywhere. And again, it was trying to explain, well, okay, if we've got this kid who feels so much like an Afton kid, how do you explain that? Like, how? With the knowledge, and again, with the knowledge we had at the time, we're like with the books we had and all of the theories we'd had previously, it was like, well, Robot Kid feels like the logical answer here.
Yes, because that was what you had at
exactly.
The time
Whereas now we have the mimic.
What Scott had established.
Yeah, sorry. Whereas now we have like the mimic.
Because I was gonna say, I'll go into GodDavid from there, because that was your little like GREGBOT retrospective. From GodDavid, what I basically did was I took everything that you and Matt put into sorry, for GodDavid, what I did was I took everything you and Matt did, and I went, yeah, true, and I took it and I started kind of building with the new stuff that Secret of the Mimic gives you, right? Which is David Murray and a few connections with that weren't available before. So yeah, just one of them. Obviously, you have a whole new kid to make the design connections with, right? Carries the stuffed toy everywhere. Has a favorite stuffed toy. You know, depending on how you like the image, he's got a striped shirt. Some people think it's a belt. I still think it's a striped shirt.
I would agree.
But they very deliberately put him into the same position as Gregory and Glamrock Freddy at the end of Security Breach, and that's a very clear visual cue. Besides literal like physical similarities, you have the landscape as well, right? Because now we know that Edwin house at the top of that hill probably gets repossessed by William Afton later on, and we also can be pretty sure. I'm assuming that you've heard all the theories that like Murray's costume manor that later becomes the grounds for the Pizzaplex.
Yes. Yeah. No,
Yes.
I kind of inferred the same thing in my episodes. I'm just like, yeah,
Okay,
everything gets
that's
built
good.
on top of everything. That's just what this franchise does.
So with that, you also have that, hey, all 3 of those kids at some point all have, like adventures on that same plot of land. I don't know if I'd call Cece's life an adventure because he just dies.
Yeah, like
same with David's, but like they all occupy that same exact plot of land, which is kind of something we didn't know before. We didn't know that the FNAF 4 house was literally where the Pizzaplex was, And then third, you just have the really weird connections, like the fact that Tiger Rock, the way that thing acts, is exactly like Golden Freddy.
Yeah.
It shows up in your face, giggles, then teleports away, which is exactly the same kind of possession that Golden Freddy has. So my brain was kind of going between a couple different things for what that could mean. One is that David Murray is his own kid, right? And this is just, whatever happens with him, this is just somehow a phenomena that William Afton realizes. He discovers this, and he tries to recreate it, similarly to how he tries to, recreate the possession he sees with the business associate's daughter in the books, right? Same kind of character motivation there. And that is the reason why Golden Freddy teleports the same way as Tiger Rock. He's literally observing it as like a control group and trying to recreate. Like, oh, possession, now I'm going to make the same one. Boom. Alternatively, theory number 2 under that umbrella was that they're all literally somehow the same thing. So, yeah. So his consciousness is the crying child's, which is Gregory's. I also forgot to mention, I'm pretty confident that Hyperdroid's onto the right track with Dave being the name of the crying child, which in and of itself, when you have another kid named Dave with all those traits, that alone is just like, that's interesting.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah. So I think the connections definitely mean something. The reason I did not go the robot angle was because of Scott's kind of old lines that he likes to clear up mysteries in later games. And the very next release after Security Breach introduces a mechanic where they can put a little chip in your head that can kind of talk in different voices, right? And presumably control you to act a certain way, because Vanny has that mask on and she's the evil one. So my thought there was like, okay, if it's not he's literally a robot, it might be some sort of like that mask might be having him act a certain way, or else Fate Fiona somehow. I don't know how willing I am. I love Gibby. I don't know how, and he knows. We clown on each other all the time. We're like, your theory sucks. No, your theory sucks. But, yeah, we're good. We just went to Universal together. We're great friends.
Oh, brilliant.
But I don't know how willing I am to believe that Scott Cawthon is just gonna like throw the field in the games without telling anybody.
Yeah, it's one of the it is a little bit out there. And I talked about it in an episode. I talked about both your theories because I was like, these are both fascinating in different ways. And I think there's interesting things that you can take. I think, the 0 point field, it's hard when it's like a single book. It was something I didn't mention in the episode. When you've got one book that does like this one mechanic, which is never like utilized again, it's hard to then pinpoint it as going, this is the method. Compared to, again, why we went down Robot Kid initially was because so many books have like kids, like people becoming robots or robots trying to look human and those sorts of things where like robot children seem to be a thing. Now we can kind of look back at it and go, again, some of those you can separate out a little bit more because you've got the mimic who is trying to like be human. And so you're going, okay, it's robots being like, there's a slight difference there. But yeah, that's where things like that become slightly tricky. But yeah, there's a bunch of these, like, it's all really interesting stuff, and it's just how you want to.
How do you connect the dots?
How do you connect those dots, right? And like, how much do you take like symbolic stuff, like another part of like Gregory being crying child was the ice creams at the end of the game. Vanessa has an ice cream that's similar to the Elizabeth ice cream, and he's taken a bite out of the Golden Freddy ice cream, which you go. Like, that feels symbolic. That feels like retribution in a funny way. And then there's the fact that like all of their shirts are like purple in that scene because it's sunset, and so that's how like lighting changes the visual. So it's like, no, we know that Gregory's shirt isn't literally purple in this scene; it's blue. But they've chosen to present it in a purple while you've also got Golden Freddy ice cream, all of this thing. There's those like connections where you just go, okay, we have like that's a big connection, but we have to figure out why that is and how.
Yeah, I wanted to get into Rytos did a podcast about a month ago on GodDavid.
Oh, fantastic.
Have you heard of mimic custody?
Oh, yes, I have. That's Rye has mentioned this to me. Yes.
We kind of were brainstorming that live on that. I'll do a very quick like couple sentence overview because I think he's on the right track. There is in Security Breach in the Endo daycare, right? There is at the very end, you have two paintings. You might be trying to visualize this.
Yeah.
there's two paintings right next to each other, right? The one has a green.
Your camera's doing the thing. No.
So in the Security Breach daycare, at the very end, when you're about to get out of like the Endo Weeping Angels section, there are two paintings, right? Above one is a green light. Above the other is a purple light. Under the green lighted painting, it is a single endoskeleton caring for a single young boy's bruised knee with a green check mark. Under the purple light, it is the same endoskeleton with glitch trap spray painted on grabbing its shoulders, and a older brother and a younger sister are added into the picture.
Yeah.
So you have the same endoskeleton, except in one it has one kid, and in the other, Afton is attaching itself to it, and two more are added to the family.
Yeah.
So our essential and the young boy is the same in both pictures.
Yeah.
The boy that So we took that, and I just thought of that because you were talking about all the. Are you looking those up now?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I was just looking up because I remember the one with the purple, the glitch trap bunny ears, and I remember that one really distinctly. The other one. Because I vaguely
the other one is just the
it.
endoskeleton caring for the young boy, and they're right next to each other at the end of the. Yeah, but anyway, so the idea with that was symbolism that. That's why I called it mimic custody. It's that both of these forces are taking the same kid and trying to make him into their own thing, basically. So Gregory, right, the Afton side that's attached to this is like, oh, that's my son. And then assuming that M1 is what powers the whole building or runs a significant part of the building, it sees Gregory wants to make that her son. So that's why it's called mimic custody. It's because the young boy in both families is the same one. But I just found it. I think it's very intentional that the one that has Afton spray painted on it, the Afton in that one has the same children his family does, which is a sister and two boys.
Yeah.
So that was our theory. It was like, okay, that's kind of like foreshadowing or hinting that like, hey, two forces are at play in the Pizzaplex, not one.
That's interesting. Like.
And the reason I was thinking of that is because when you were reacting to GodDavid and giving your thoughts on it, you were like, it's kind of weird that like Balloon World, that the purple text that comes up there would be Fiona or M1 or like David M2. Sorry, you're like that's more likely to be M1, which is infected with glitch trap. And I was like, yeah, true. That's probably correct. I didn't think of that somehow. But
this is the joy of FNAF theorizing and being a community.
Yeah, you get to work.
We get to work together to solve things, like rather than it being down to one person to individually find the entire solution.
But yeah, so I kept thinking about that, what you said, and the kind of theory that Rye mostly made with the mimic custody. And I was like, that also kind of explains why it's so mentally torn apart in the sticky note room, right? It's like, what am I? What's going on? It's trying to be two different kids, two different people. So I thought that was just a series of very interesting things that you can kind of connect together. So that is where I currently stand on GodDavid. I think it's that both of those entities are trying to enact their will on everything in the Pizzaplex. Where do you currently stand on Gregory?
Where do I currently stand on Gregory? Honestly, Gregory is a little simpler for me these days. I think crying child David Afton is still like a question mark. And again, I know you brought it up in GodDavid, is how he gets possessed or how that works is still
No idea.
It's still a stretch. Like, it's a stretch. It's hard to figure out, and so that one I'm still mulling over myself. But Gregory, I think it's one of those things where going back to GREGBOT, and even in like my one of my split theories where I talk about this is how like why these connections are the same, and GREGBOT gets created. Like, I recognize, and even in that video, I recognize that there's a lot of point A and point C, and we kind of have to make up B to get there.
Yeah.
You have to make a lot of assumptions of like how the mimic ends up back underground, and then M1 creates a robot somewhere, and that's why they have no records. But then at the same time, like you pointed out, the therapists do have records of them, and they have a good family, they have a history. So it's like, so honestly, I do tend to lean more towards the GodDavid explanation for Gregory. I think, yeah, there you go. There's your soundbite. No, but like genuinely,
put that at the beginning.
There you go.
Of the episode.
There you go. No, I genuinely think it's very well, like the Gregory connection makes a lot of sense. It finally gives us an explanation for Balloon World, which I think is brilliant. I think finally having this sense of what on earth was this arcade machine for that leads nowhere, but it being in Gregory's cubbyhole, and therefore it's where like he.
See, you're already getting used to it.
So it's like, and then you get into his So that's, and so like he's playing it, and it gets into his psyche that way, and then it allows for the things we were talking about right at the start of all this, where it's like he's not a hacker, but his influence from M1 Glitchtrap is and allows him to be a hacker, and it's more of an infection, more of a AI possessing thing, where he's becoming possessed by what M1 and Glitchtrap want him to be. And so he's now a master hacker. He's now acting differently towards his friends and to the therapists, and he's, bumping them off when they get too close to like what's going on, talking about like his internal dialogue with the therapy tapes and all of those sorts of details. Like, again, it's one of those things. I look back and I go, GREGBOT, especially like original GREGBOT theory, I stand by that theory. I think it's a very good theory. I think given what we had, it's put together, and I think it makes a lot of sense. We then reevaluate, and with new information, I think it is much less likely that it is, as you were saying, like a robot kid, and instead we're now exploring this idea of AI controlling people's minds, like with Vanny, like with the chip that Cassie gets, all of that stuff. So that would be where I would lean. I think Gregory is a real kid that is probably being possessed into being David. The only thing that like niggles me a little bit is the post-it room, and like how the heck that works, because like for a long time everyone was going, oh, is this the mimic? But then the mimic's locked in the basement, so it can't be that. So it's like, what? Is he writing in binary? Again, I guess the explanation could be like he's writing in binary because, like you say, you've got these two opposing forces, or this mixed messaging, depending on how you want to look at it, from like the mimic program that's in his brain. And so some of it is like, here's stuff from Crying Child, here's stuff that's that's like more David Murray or a little bit different, and like just pure robot text because it's literally like a machine program in his head. I guess it just feels a little bit like odd. But then Security Breach is very odd, and it's so hard to know what we can and can't trust fully in Security Breach. So
I'm gonna have a whole episode on the post-it room at some point. So subscribe for that. You want to.
There it is. There it is. No, that sounds great.
Yeah. But I see too few people mention there's not only 3 evolutions of how the post-it notes go, right? Because when you climb out of the post-it room, that's when all the little white paper is on the floor.
Yes.
That says it's drawn to sound. So there's actually 4 layers.
Yes.
It's these little colored squares of paper. Then you go up, and now there's all the white paper on the ground, like error 404. It is drawn to sound.
Yes.
Something, little drawings of Glamrock Freddy's head.
Gosh, there's so much in that.
So whatever,
game.
and I think it's symbolic, right? Because as you make your way up the silo, as you scale it, the things writing the notes get more intelligent, right? When you get to the top, it's like, I'm assuming Gregory or someone of at least like 12 years old wrote that. They're not scribbles and doodles. So it's very odd that it's like all right, you have this kid starting down here. On the middle floor, it has enough intelligence to build little replicas of families. And on the top floor, it knows about like radio waves and how to lure the animatronic. Like, it's very odd, the progression of that. So that's a whole other can of worms. But I just wanted to point that out because I feel like I never see anybody mentioning that there's actually four different kinds of drawings in that area.
Yeah, no, it's true. I'd not thought about that. Like, it was it's one of those things where you often come up with, Scary Breach especially, there's so much, and you come up with these things and you just go, these 3 layers I can like wrap my head around, and it makes sense for like Patient 46 and Robot Kids and all that kind of explanation. And then you get to this layer and I'm going, I don't know what this is for. I don't understand this. And so you kind of like, it's so easy to like pass information and like get lost because you're not thinking about it within the right context necessarily. But it's really interesting. I wonder if it's, because again, like if we're going like, again, this is where we kind of had Robot Kid initially, because it's like, oh, it's a robot coming into consciousness. Here's binary. Here's it getting slowly better and better at the thing. But, and clearly there is, as you say, a level of progression going on. I wonder if it's I wonder if it's something to do with like Gregory's initial possession, essentially. Like as he's initially like, you know, he gets like brain blasted by Balloon World and gets possessed by, you know, the AI. And so he like, you know, again, like locations in the Pizzaplex are so annoying and confusing because it's so big and there's so many things like hidden. It's like, why are all these things that are hidden that are clearly like connected? But it feels like, was he like, you know, again, the crappy explanation will be, oh, he stumbled his way down there because like, again, like almost coming out of consciousness of himself and into this new one. And so it's the new one almost having to like almost reestablishing itself, like the AI establishing itself within his brain and like almost like resetting him as a human, and like he has to like do a quick progression up. Again, I'm sure your theory will go into a lot of this detail, so I don't wish you to spoil it or anything like that, but that was just a thought that came to mind that I think is interesting.
Did you and Matt even talk about how the door to the sticky note room is called Charlie Door, as like that's a reference to the novels where it's the same kind of thing, a robot of somebody learning to be them or whatever?
Yeah, we talked about it. We did so many theories. I've done so many theories.
There's a lot.
And I know in one of them, or in a couple of them even, it was where we were talking about the tendrils a lot. I'm talking about once we started to get closer to Ruin, I think it was pre-Ruin, possibly, because it was when we were like getting into the storyteller era, was like the big story that was coming out. And it's like, oh, here are all these tendrils and wires, and they're all puppet like colored, like with these black and white stripes. And so like, and we had like the logos for Steelwool were purple and green, and we had the discussion of like, you know, it feels like at the time it felt like, oh, maybe this is Charlie versus Afton, and it's this kind of battle for control, which again leads into kind of stuff we've been talking about, just not the right characters that we were associating with. And so we did talk, because the Charlie door again was part of that evidence of like, look, Charlie is clearly here and is like possessing what we had was like Charlie is possessing the Pizzaplex in some way, like burial ground style, which I think is part of like Fate Fiona and like how that ties in. Like we had made those connections of like, it feels like the marionette is everywhere, and so is Charlie possessing the whole thing. And like there's a door called the Charlie door, which is like a crucial door. But again, we never found a satisfying way to, because we made the connection of like Charlie door, we've got the fourth closet and the doors in the books, but where that kind of went, because again, it was like at the time we were going, well, it's GREGBOT and it's Crying Child. So where does Charlie fit into this, and why is this the Charlie door if this is meant to be the Crying Child coming into consciousness?
Yeah, well, we got two Charlies to pick from.
Yeah, and then it's like, you've then got like, because again, like Charlie's one of those characters where I think we get so like obsessed, or we focus on things like the Crying Child and like Michael Afton, because like the story, it feels like there's so much story to tell, and there's more to their story, whereas Charlie's kind of felt like it kept getting like keeps getting dragged on, like, oh, Happiest Day, like the puppet's released. Oh no, she's back in FNAF 6. And like, but like at the end of that, like Henry releasing his daughter and freeing his daughter feels like a good ending for her. And so it's like, where does she fit into this modern story? Because clearly there's some reference to it, but it's just unclear how she ties into the wider story outside of the fact that the Mimic like whether we, or I say the fact, the idea that the mimic is being used to train or to create the VR game, like it is in the books or is referenced in the books.
Yeah, and I'm almost certain that's what is happening, considering that there's literal rooms from the VR game in the Pizzaplex underground. For some reason in the basement.
And so yeah, it feels like Charlie's influence makes sense from that perspective, and so the mimic again getting muddied with all of these ideas of different characters and who it relates to, but why Charlie Door specifically with that room has always been a bit of an odd one for me.
Yeah, one thing we've been doing on. I do a lot of live streams, and our main kind of thing is we call it like overanalyzing the games, and we really do. Security Breach, we spent 30 hours playing, not in a row. Not in a row.
I was gonna say like that would be dedication.
Yeah, and even on like a playthrough years later, we still noticed like new stuff and took note of new stuff. So like for example, Princess Quest 1 and 2. You start the games normally. Princess Quest 3, when you press start, it freezes for like 25 frames, and there's green and purple chromatic aberration. Only on that start screen, on none of the others. Also, thinking about like the kind of like the mimic running the whole Pizzaplex thing, it is only when Burntrap reaches his hand into a piece of technology that he's able to control Glamrock Freddy, which is kind of a hint that everything's into the same system, you know? All right, if I grab this technology, I can control this technology. So there's just so much stuff that's very like, even years later, that even if like, you know, certain people pick up on it, you can have new people to the games come and notice things that like 80% of people might not have known about years later. So it's crazy how much is packed in to this. I would say, what are your predictions for Gregory going forward?
Oh, gosh. I mean, my general prediction right now, generally for like FNAF, is we're going to get DLC for Secret of the Mimic. My hope is it's full fest. I don't know if it will be. I wish it was, but I don't know if it will be. Like we all want it. We all want it to be full fest, and it's taking place in September, and there's a big fight. Like it like the mimic walking off, like at the end of one of the endings, you go like, yeah, it's just walking, like because everything is built on the same land, so clearly full fest is down the road. So like. I think we'll get that, and then my gut is that the next thing we'll get is like follow-up. It will be the Ruin sequel, where we actually find out like what's going on with Cassie down like after the elevator crashed, and therefore what is going on with Gregory and Vanessa. So I think that's where what we're gonna get and like where that story is. And this is then the big question, I guess, and I'm fascinated in your thoughts on this. Do we think that Gregory is totally free of Glitch Trap?
This is the weird thing, because there's actually 2 Balloon World machines. The one in the daycare is still functional. The one underground in the burn trap room is destroyed.
Yep.
I mean, he must be pretty far out, because they're going to extreme lengths to get him back.
Yeah, no, it's true. And again, it falls into...
like, the mask comes off.
Yeah, and it falls into that idea again of, like, if we're going, oh, is he playing the long con this whole time? Again, it just feels a bit like, okay, more lies, more, like, sweep it under the rug kind of mentality. So, like, I tend to lean towards the idea that he is probably free, like Vanessa is, because of the Princess Quest endings. It's like, it feels like that was the point. The point was to go, look, they are now free of this influence, but that influence is still here. Like Ruin and Help Wanted 2 is to point, like the mimic is here, and the mimic is like Glitch Trap is like revived almost at the end of Help Wanted 2 that leads into Ruin. So it's like this thing is here still. It's just that these two are like out of it, and now they're trying to like fix everything. I love the detail that when we had the Help Wanted 2 update, the van that takes away the mixer's machine is the same one that Gregory drives in one of the endings. So it's like a fazbear van, and it's like, oh, well, that's what they'd have access to. So it's an interesting idea that like they went to pick up mexes to like maybe try and fix things, possibly. Again, there's so many ways you could take that, but the idea that they are working together to fix this problem, or because they were part of the system almost, they are aware of the mimic and how dangerous it is, and so they're trying to resolve it in some way while the mimic is trying to free itself or free its son, because it's like I personally believe it's M2 down there. I again open to seeing how that changes, but it feels like it needs it needs to be like M2 like having rebuilt itself in some way. And so you're going, okay, we know about this thing in the basement now that it's trying to get to. We need to stop that. And then Mimic's, the glitch trap is going, no, I need that thing. I want that. So we're gonna like use Cassie to like get through. And so I think with Gregory, I would love for it to be a game where if Cassie has managed to survive somehow, because everyone survives everything in this franchise at all times, I'd be fascinated to see, like, again, if we go back to the Gregory walkie-talkie thing, but it's actually Gregory this time and he's actually helping in some way. Like, outside of that, I think, and like maybe he's giving, because again, we're into a realm now where we're getting much more story being given to us in the game. So like the audio files and the mailboxes and stuff throughout Secret of the Mimic was like quite overtly saying, here is Edwin's story. Like, here is a lot of it. There's still interpretation, but a lot of it's like, here it is. I think we're probably going to end up, I'd be interested to see if we end up with more of that like clarification stuff from Gregory. So they've clarified like the start of the franchise, and now we're going to clarify some stuff at the end. And so Gregory's there kind of as your guide, but as you go, you're crawling through a vent and suddenly you get a Gregory going like, oh, that I remember how it felt, and like talking about like what it was like being under the influence of this thing, and like, oh, I remember when I realized what was down there or whatever, like, and starting to like make those connections. Whether he like, and so he kind of becomes like your guy in the booth, the guy like who's behind the scenes, who's got all the tech, has got the maps up, and is like, like I can see that being his role. And then like maybe he shows up at the end, maybe like, I could see like a final encounter or something where him and Vanessa like swoop on in, and it becomes this like, we're here to like help you, Cassie, get out or whatever. But I feel like that's probably the direction it's going, because also everyone hated the idea that Gregory was evil. Everyone just didn't like that idea. And so I think leaning into the idea that he is good now and he's going to help you and be like your guy in the box is probably the direction they will lean. It just depends on where Cassie ends up, and that's so up for debate at this point.
Yeah, well, especially because he is characterized as nice as well at the end of Ruin in the Roxy section. Which you and Matt mysteriously teleported past.
I can't believe that.
In your first
we managed to skip it. There was so much stuff we could have sat there and talked about. It wasn't until afterwards I was like, oh no, we missed like this whole like character moment for both Cassie and Gregory.
Like a fourth of the game.
Oh my gosh. Hey, we helped a bunch of speedrunners, so we did.
That's true.
We did something. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. What do you think? Where do you think sort of Gregory's going to end up?
I would probably say the exact same thing. I don't think he's gonna die. I think that would be a little. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that'd be a little dark, but this is FNAF. But
it would be nice to have an ending where people don't die. It'd be nice for not everything to go up in flames. True. And it'd be like, no, these characters made it. I
also don't think Scott has it in him to be like showing a kid die like on screen.
Right.
It'd have to be off screen, obviously.
Yeah.
But what else was I gonna say? I agree with you on I hope he's not evil at all. I do not want him to have his Professor Quirrell moment where he's like, da, 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 and I was the Mimic the whole time. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. No.
So
we end up with too many. It's the same problem that I had with, again, with GREGBOT, and also even with like, when I reacted to your theories and talked about like, oh, do you just end up with like too many versions of like a Mimic program running around, or too many robot kids running around? You also just end up with too many villains running around. Because it's like, okay, no, we know the big bad is the Mimic. We know we've now learnt their backstory. We've understood where they're coming from and who they are, and kind of what, to some degree, what they're trying to achieve. Obviously, we're all still theorizing about how all that works, but it's like we have inklings of what's going on. And so it's like, no, the Mimic is like this big bad that's been ruined and destroyed and like influenced in these negative ways. This is the problem. This is the bad thing. It's much cleaner to focus on here's the bad thing, rather than, it going, you've got this bad thing, but also Gregory, but also this thing. And it's sometimes the simplest solution is the right solution, and it just feels like if we've got the Mimic as our big bad, it feels more better to just go, let's lean into that. Let's solve that problem rather than having all these other characters also maybe be evil anymore. Whereas in like Security Breach, we weren't sure who the villain was. And so it was interesting to kind of go, well, is Gregory really the villain? And he, to some degree, he may have been beforehand. And now it's like evolved into a different direction.
All right, I think that's a good place to end this particular discussion of FNAF Mysteries with TDreads and Andrews in the games. Thank you so much for joining me, Tom.
No, thank you so much for having me.
As always, make sure you guys subscribe to me and Game Theory, little known channel. They need some help, guys.
Please, guys. We're desperate.
Very low sub count. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.